What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Blue Root Pod. I am Chris, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Hope you guys enjoyed our last Sixers draft podcast with 97.5 The Fanatics' Jamie Lynch. Huge show again for you today. It is draft season. We're less than a few days away from the 2019 NBA draft. We have a writer from The Athletic and Liberty Ballers that will be hanging out with us and talking everything Sixers draft targets and the NBA draft. Again, if you guys like what you see, make sure you hit like and subscribe below. Thanks for watching, guys. Go Sixers, baby. All right, guys. First up, we have one of our best draft experts from the Painted Lines. You've seen his series on draft theory on our Blue Route page. You've also seen many of his player profiles on Sixers draft targets. Most notably, his 5,000-word piece on Bobo. You can find him on Twitter at Buster Ducks. Welcome back to the show, Adam. What's going on, buddy?
Thanks, Chris. Hard at work. I can't believe the draft is a few days away now. It snuck up on me, and now it's crunch time. But super excited, and thanks for having me back.
Awesome. If you're listening to the Blue Route, you probably are a Sixers fan, and this guy probably doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to do one anyway. This is a guy that has a resume that's extensive and quite all over the place. He writes for The Athletic, The Step Back, Liberty Ballers. In between all that, he's a senior sports editor for the Gonzaga Bulletin. You probably already follow him. He's one of the best Sixers writers out there. Please make sure you give our special guest a follow on Twitter. You can find him at JackFrank_JJF. Welcome to the show, Jackson Frank. What's going on, dude?
Thank you. Not much, just hanging out. I appreciate that long introduction. I'm glad to be on. Thanks, guys.
Oh man, thank you so much for joining us. What's your story, man? Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
So I got into writing as a freshman in college at Gonzaga, and I finished my freshman year, and I'm not doing much writing for the school paper during the summer, and I wanted to keep writing somehow. And obviously, I was a big basketball fan, and so one day I just hopped on my computer and looked up NBA blogs, and I stumbled onto Fansided and got in connection with one of their hiring guys, and he gave me a few teams to choose from, and it was 2 years ago. I think it was either just after the Sixers had traded for the number one pick, or they still had the third pick, and I'd watched Embiid all year and was just fascinated with how good he was for not playing for 2 years, and the Sixers intrigued me, so I started writing about them over the summer and became intrigued with that team, and watched all their games last year when they won 52, and had a pretty good idea of who they were and whatnot, and then I joined Liberty Ballers last summer, and so did a lot more writing about them this year and watched all their games again. So just kind of by luck and chance happened to stumble into writing about the Sixers and have been given some really nice opportunities since then. Not a Sixers fan, Blazers fan.
Uh-huh.
But I do it's a fun team to watch. No denying that as someone who doesn't have a lot of rooting interest in the games, it can be fun to watch everything that unfolds, for better or for worse sometimes.
What do you like to do on your free time, if you have any?
I don't have a lot of free time, but a lot of it will just revolve around hanging out with friends, trying to find time to stay in shape physically, with all the writing and everything. Play a lot of basketball. Not a ton though. Pretty simple life. I wish I had a really fun hobby I could bring up, but I don't have it. It's pretty straightforward, but yeah.
All right, here we go. It's draft week, guys. The NBA draft is on Thursday. Summer League is looming. All right, Jackson, between the draft, summer league, and NBA free agency, like what's your favorite part of the NBA offseason?
I think it's got to be summer league. Just because it's been about, I mean, you go about 3.5 weeks without basketball. And while the quality isn't great, it's just a lot of basketball, and that's fun. You get all these draft prospects that you've been watching or reading about for the last 6-7 months, and now you get to actually see them in somewhat of an NBA setting. The crowds are always great for some of those bigger profile games in Las Vegas, and it just kind of gives you a little bit of a bridge between the actual end of the season and the start of the next season. And it kind of feels reminiscent to March Madness a little bit in the sense that they just throw a lot of basketball at you, and not all of it's that good, but it's basketball, and there's some fun guys, and you get to kind of see maybe some guys who might have a bigger role next year. So I think that's got to be my favorite part of it. Just a lot of basketball, and it's all on TV, and it's easy to find, and the atmosphere is great, and there's all these kind of basketball personalities in Las Vegas. It's just a really good atmosphere, it seems.
How about you, Adam?
Draft night. I mean, I'm a big draft nick, obviously. Free agency kind of happens over like a couple of days. It's too spread out for me. Draft night, you get there and it's just like boom, boom, boom. You where everyone's going. Other than that, the end of the offseason, I miss basketball already. Summer league's fun, but I want to see the big guns back out there, and can't wait for next season.
Yeah, I'm a summer league guy. I love the hype machine of summer league. It's like everything that I hope the G League eventually becomes. For me, it's summer league. Then right underneath that is draft night. All right, guys. Anthony Davis is headed to the Lakers. The Pelicans now have the 1st and 4th picks in the draft. What was your immediate reaction to that trade? Jackson, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I was walking back from a late lunch yesterday. I think it was 3:30 Pacific time over here on the West Coast, and I just opened my phone and got the notification, and my initial, I guess I wasn't necessarily that surprised, just because it seemed like some of the things Woj had been tweeting in recent days made it seem fairly imminent, in one way or another. Not necessarily imminent 20 minutes from now when he tweeted something on Thursday or Wednesday or whatever, but I thought it was a pretty good deal for both sides. I was glad to see the Lakers actually pulled the trigger on one of these deals. We heard back-to-back off seasons, Paul George, then Kawhi, he wants to go to LA, he's going to sign in free agency, and now it looks like they're not going to get either one of those guys. Obviously, they didn't get George already, so I was happy to see them finally pull the trigger, and for the Pelicans, they get a very good return. But I'm also curious to see how they managed, I think, the two big kind of assets there besides Lonzo Ball are Brandon Ingram in the 4th pick, and Ingram kind of seems like a weird fit there, just because they probably need a little more shooting around Lonzo and Zion, and Ingram kind of seems like to have the ball in his hands a little bit. So I think that's a guy that maybe they flip. Mm-hmm. And then the 4th pick, they seem, if they're not, it doesn't seem like they want to trade Jrue Holiday, which would signal they're still trying to be pretty competitive, and it's going to be hard to be competitive with the 4th pick. I think you can get some good solid contributors, but if you're still looking to be very good right now, I would imagine they look to move that. So just interested to see what they do with some of those pieces, if they're done, if they're not done. But yeah, just initial reaction was there's a lot of still moving parts to go with this trade, which is always kind of fascinating when trades get drawn out a little bit and keep you on your toes.
Yeah. Adam, do you have any thoughts about that trade?
Yeah, my first thought was finally. I think that's pretty much everyone's first thought. From when it really got interesting to me was when the draft pick stuff came out. And the only thing I can really think of is that the Lakers are just netting themselves. We all remember when the Nets sold out their franchise to get Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett. They were good for 1 year and then fell apart. Giving up so many picks and all the draft swaps with a 34-year-old LeBron James, Anthony Davis, great player when he's on the court, has a lot of minor injuries. They have Kuzma's a nothing player. They're going to have this $30 million, $25 million, whatever it's going to be in cap space. But there's not a lot there, and it's just going to take, one injury or even just not getting the right minimum pieces to go there, and that team can fall apart. And if that team doesn't work out, there's nothing left there. So I think the Lakers gave up way too much for a guy that they would have gotten next year, without question. From the Pelicans side, obviously love it. I mean, they're set for life. I think the core of Ball, Drew, Ingram, and Zion's a great core. Got to find a center. Plenty of centers available in free agency. Bol at number 4.
Right.
Easy. But if you're going to replace a freak, Bol's a freak. They might try to trade down with the Hawks. Maybe pick up another pick before taking that. But you say you need shooting. You can't find a center who shoots better than that. So do what the Pelicans grab for Thursday.
Jackson, what are Blazers fans saying about that trade?
I haven't seen a ton of notes. I feel like I'm more connected to Sixers Twitter than I am Blazers Twitter for whatever reason. Actually, not for whatever reason. It's obviously clear considering I write about the Sixers. But I don't know. For me personally, I guess a little bummed because I wanted the Blazers to try and wanted the Blazers to try and put together some package for Anthony Davis. I'm someone who's definitely a proponent of small markets staying good, not great. But I think with the Blazers, you kind of saw their ceiling as currently constructed. And while it was a really, really fun year from my perspective, it would have been fun to see them try and at least go for it with Anthony Davis with the West pretty wide open. A Dame AD 1-2 punch is a really, really good starting place. And considering the fact that it seems like the Blazers are pretty good about maximizing their role players, I would have liked to see them go for it there. And if they don't get it, they still have Dame, which is always a really good starting spot as long as he's healthy and relatively in his prime. So I think just personally I was a little bummed that it happened this quickly. I think given a few more days there would have been a lot more teams that ramped it up, especially after what happened with Golden State in the finals, making it seem like the odds of anyone becoming an overwhelming favorite are pretty slim for next season. But I think a lot of Blazers fans are probably bummed as well, but that might stem from disdain for the Lakers, given they're a little bit of a rivalry there. It's been on hiatus for a while, but still definitely some animosity between the two fan bases.
My immediate thought after seeing that trade, the Woj bomb, went straight to the Boston Celtics, and they missed out on Kawhi. They missed out on Paul George. Now they're going to miss out on Anthony Davis. Kyrie is leaving Boston. So, what a mess that is. That was my initial reaction for me.
I feel so terrible for them.
Oh, don't you? Don't you? Like, for poor Boston Celtics fans. God. All right. So with Kevin Durant's torn Achilles, average recovery time in NBA history is usually like nearly a year. Do you think that KD's injury will have any impact on the upcoming draft for teams like the Knicks, the Clippers, or the Nets? Adam, you want to start us off with that one?
Yeah, we have KD's injury. I think after we finalized this, Clay went down with his knee injury as well. Ultimately, I think the Knicks at number 3 are in on Barrett. So I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot changing there. For teams like the Clippers or the Nets, or other teams that may have been on Kevin Durant, I don't think it's really going to change much. I think these teams, that are in win now mode are going to be in win now mode, whether or not they get Durant or Tobias Harris has been in play for some of these teams. I think even if they were going to start, they're still looking for ready now role-playing talent. So I don't think we're going to see the injuries or even the Anthony Davis trade really make any kind of impact on who's going to go where.
Okay.
Yeah. I think either way with all 3 of those teams, the Clippers, Nets, and Knicks, you were just looking to surround KD or other free agents with kind of complementary talent, and I don't think it changed their draft their draft philosophy anyway. I think the goal for the Knicks is to take RJ and kind of let him be their secondary ball handler on the wing next to KD. Now, obviously, that changes. RJ's going to have a bigger role. I mean, assuming he still goes to New York, he's going to have a bigger role there, for better or for worse. A little longer leash, would imagine. Let him work through some growing pains, but also invites maybe some of those more frustrating drives he's prone to, where he misses open guys or barrels into the defense. But yeah, I don't think it changes much for the Clippers or the Nets. The goal is still just to find complementary talent, because where they're drafting, they're not in position for a future 1A star or anything like that. So I think the goal is to just remain. Both those teams have drafted pretty well in recent years. The goal should continue that trend.
Okay. Looking back at the last several years of the draft between Ayton, Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons, Andrew Wiggins, Karl Towns, where do you think Zion Williamson fits among those former number one picks? Jackson, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of where he'd rank as a prospect over the last X amount of years, he's right up there. I think the only guys that really rival him would be a guy like Anthony Davis. And then, you got to go all the way back to someone like LeBron, really, because Davis was not expected. I don't think people anticipated Davis becoming this good of a scorer when he first came in the league. I think the goal, from my memory, was that he'd be maybe a little bit better defensive prospect, but nowhere near this 27, 30-point scorer that he's developed into. Whereas Zion already averaged 23 on absurd efficiency. And the thing with Zion is he's the best offensive, defensive prospect in the class. He's the best athlete by a wide margin, safest floor, highest ceiling. I just don't think you've had many of those guys in a long time. I think Ayton probably had a pretty high floor last year, but I don't think people thought his ceiling would be. I don't think his ceiling was ever thought to be the highest. It could be a guy like Luka or Jaren Jackson. So I think Zion ranks up there with the best of them this century, really. He's just a special prospect on both sides of the ball, however you look at it. Incredibly skilled, too, not just an athlete. Some of those narratives have been going around, but yeah, just a really, really special prospect, and stands up there with the best of them in over the last 15, 16 years, really.
All right. Adam, you want to give your thoughts?
Yeah, pretty much. I had Simmons as one of those top 5, top 10 type players. So I think Zion fits in with Simmons. I think that's way ahead of the rest of these guys. Anthony Davis, is another good player in that tier. My only concern with Zion, I love him as a prospect. And the more I watch his tape, the more I dig into him, the more I like him, which usually doesn't happen. Normally, I have the opposite happen. But my big concern is that the one position that routinely busts at the top of the draft is that kind of combo forward, weird fitting dude. Michael Beasley is another guy who was just an insane college player who just kind of never figured out how to make it work in the end. I still think that Zion is an elite prospect. But I think he's no doubt about it. And I think that he's going to be real good.
I think the big difference, not just with Beasley and Zion, well, one, Zion actually passes unlike Beasley, but I think the difference is you don't really have to fit, you don't have to fit Zion in somewhere. You just have to fit things around him because he's that good. So even if he isn't necessarily a true 4 or a true 3, or he's a little undersized height-wise to be a small ball center, actually that's redundant, but he can't be a full-time center, really. So I think the difference there is he's just such a good prospect that you put him wherever, and then teams work around him. It's not necessarily where even Ayton or Ben Simmons, those guys had to come in to establish franchise superstars or stars with Embiid and Devin Booker, obviously different levels there. But with Zion, there's no fit. You gotta figure out how to fit around him, not fit him in somewhere.
Putting Devin Booker in the same breath as Joel Embiid is painful. I think Devin Booker's got the second worst contract in basketball. I think he's just not a very good player. So But that's probably a different conversation.
I just meant in the sense that the Sixers view Embiid as a franchise pillar and the Suns view Booker as one. So when they drafted Simmons and Ayton respectively, there was a little bit of that they had to coexist with those two guys each. But no, I
certainly.
No, you're good. No, you're good. I was definitely not comparing them as caliber talents by any means.
Yeah, guys, I'm already counting down the days to go see Ben versus Zion next season. What a matchup! What a matchup! All right, guys, let's get into some Sixers draft talk. Assuming the board falls as expected, assuming the Sixers stay at 24, who are your top 3 targets for a successful draft for the Sixers in the first round? You want to go, Adam?
Sure. This draft is really volatile. Typically I have a pretty good idea of who's going where. Looking at a bunch of mock drafts, it's really hard to figure out who's going where. So I would say Ball, it looks at this point that with his workout the other day that he's not going to fall to 24. So I'd say the 3 biggest targets of guys that I've seen falling more often than not, number 1 would be Matisse Thybulle. Fits exactly what the Sixers need. Defender, doesn't need the ball. If Tybulle's not there, I think there's a pretty big drop-off. The next 2 guys I have on my list would be Ty Jerome. Role-playing guard would be a nice backup point guard at this point. And Chuma Okeke from Auburn probably won't play this upcoming season, which I know would make Sixers fans just absolutely over the moon. I know we love our guys who don't play their rookie seasons, but I think that passing up on the talent, given the other guys likely to be available, I would just take him and deal with the fallout.
What about you, Jackson?
Yeah, I think so. Just looking at my board, I think the guys that will be there at 24, that I have ranked highest I think would be the best fits and ranked highest are Grant Williams, Chuma Okeke, and Carson Edwards for me.
Yeah.
I think Grant Williams is the guy that seems to be going in the second round. For whatever reason, it just baffles me that teams can't even find a spot for him in the first round. But no, really good help side defender, really smart player, very good passer for his size. Not great defending the perimeter, but I think in a pinch he's going to be okay. I think he kind of projects as a decent or just kind of middle of the road perimeter defender for the power forward position. And then Okeke, I think his rehab will take a little bit of time, but I wouldn't be surprised if he plays for a draft next year. I mean, he suffered that injury in late March. Roughly that timeline is, just from reading, is usually 7 to 9 months for an ACL. So I think you could see him back maybe sometime around the All-Star break or the spring. Just being conservative with it. I mean, you say 9 months to put him right around the start of the new year, but he's probably going to go to the G League. I don't think he'd play a huge role for the Sixers next year, but I really like him overall, and so I think it's not worth passing up on him in terms for other guys. And then Edwards is a guy who just makes a ton of sense fit-wise, can play off the ball, run around a lot of those screens like JJ Redick. Pretty solid at when guys double him off screens, making the proper read. Small at 6 foot, but 6'6" wingspan, really strong for his size. Knows how to play defense at least. So I think he could be a guy who could at least guard both backcourt spots. But overwhelmingly, Grant Williams is my number 1 target for the Sixers. He's 5th on my board. I just think he's a really good basketball player with a lot of translatable skills. And would really shore up some holes in that bench unit. Can facilitate, score, defend, all kind of keeping that those bench units alive that have notoriously struggled for the Sixers.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, you said, for some reason why these guys fall, and I think all you have to do is, look at combine measurements. Grant Williams came in under 6'6" without shoes. Carson Edwards, I think, came in at 5'10.5" without shoes. Once those measurements hit, both guys fell pretty hard. So both of them are going to have to answer the same question, which is basically just, can they overcome their literal shortcoming?
Jackson, you wrote a really good article on Grant Williams, his two-way ability to make him a top 10 pick. You raved about his IQ and his strength. I would like to talk about a Gonzaga guy real quick, especially Brandon Clark. Is there any possibility of the Sixers possibly trading up for him? And like, how would you see his fit with the Sixers?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea about trading up. I think to where they would need to get it would be a little tough. I mean, I'm just not sure how much like the 33, 34th pick, 33rd, 34th pick is worth. My gut tells me they don't trade up. I haven't seen them working out a lot of guys that are in those late teens, late lottery projected range. Obviously, teams don't publicize everyone they work out, but I haven't seen them working out a lot of those guys. They haven't worked out Clark, to my knowledge at least. But I think he would be another guy who, a little bit like Grant Williams, would fit in really well off the bench. Obviously, there's a bigger question mark with his shooting, but he's improved so much mechanically in the last couple of years that I think he'll be fine as a spot-up shooter. Really good weak side rim protector again. Really good instinct, really good awareness. Incredible athlete. If Zion weren't in this class, we'd be talking more about him as an athlete. Really, again, a little bit like Grant Williams. He's 6'8" wingspan, which is just going to hinder him at some opportunities, regardless of how dynamic of an athlete he is. And he can't jump at everything, so sometimes your length is going to have to be the best strength there. He just doesn't quite have that. But I think, again, he would just be a really good piece off the bench. I guess with the Sixers, they'd probably have to run more pick and rolls for him, just because that's probably the primary way he scores a lot of his offense, at least early. You're not going to give him the ball for a lot of face-ups as a rookie. But yeah, just I think a guy who's so talented and so smart on both sides of the ball that it'd be really tough to pass him in. If for some reason he was there at 24, or you traded up for 19 and he fell you or something like that.
I'm really shocked that no one said Cam Johnson. He's like the most talked about prospect at 24. Jackson, what's your takeaway on Cam Johnson?
Yeah, I'm not anti Cam Johnson by any means. I have him 22nd, I think, on my board, so right in that range, or 23rd, excuse me, right in that range. I think that's a guy who makes a lot of sense and has been mocked there a lot, and I would be surprised, if they didn't draft him, to be honest. Assuming he doesn't go a few picks earlier by teams who also need shooting, like the Thunder. But I just prefer the other guys a little bit. But he'd be a great fit. Really, really good shooter. I mean, 46% or something this year, I think, roughly. His numbers off screens, on spot ups, even off the dribble a little bit, are really, really good. The closest thing you'll find to an elite shooting prospect or elite shooter in the NBA in this draft, I think. And then defensively, I think it's a little odd. I'm a little concerned with who he guards, but I think he's a very smart defensive player. Off the ball, he'll be fine. Really quick hands. You probably put him to 2 and figure out if you can use his length to kind of compensate for his lack of quickness there. But a really versatile shooter, solid passer for his role. I don't think he's great by any means, but he could make decent enough reads in what they'll ask him to do, I'd imagine. So he'd be a really, really good fit. There are some questions. He's had some injuries in the past. He is pretty frail, or not frail, I guess thin. So those are the biggest questions, but he'd be a great fit by all means. And we saw what happened last year with the Sixers when they took the best shooter in the draft in the 20s, and Landry Shamet. So obviously very different players. Shamet was more of a point guard and a lot quicker than Johnson, but same idea. And you draft the best shooter and you give him a very simplified role, and you kind of forget it and watch him shoot 40+% from deep on 4 to 5 attempts a night.
So, Adam, do you have any last quick comments about Cam Johnson?
Yeah, just real quick to go back to Clark. I'm not going to rehash everything. You can find my profile on Blue Root. I currently have him as my number 4 prospect, so if you want to read my thoughts on him, I would certainly trade up if the opportunity arose, but it would probably take giving up Zaire Smith to get up high enough at this point. But that's that. Cam Johnson I have in my tier 7, which is basically my second round pile of prospects who might be something. I think Cam Johnson's massively overrated. The biggest stat for Cam Johnson isn't his 3-point percentage. It's his age. 23-year-olds need to be superstars in college, or else I'm just not going to be interested. I think his shooting's really overrated. He's accurate, but a 23-year-old at the college 3-point line, he didn't do anything special. I think athletically he's fine, but I don't know that he doesn't have a very quick shot release. He's not very good off the ball mover. He can't really play defense. I think he can find better players in the G League, quite honestly. So I think people are just over it. If he had come out last year, he wouldn't have even been considered a prospect. He might have caught on as a backup somewhere in the G League. I think people just aren't putting him in context. 23-year-old college, it just doesn't matter to me. I think that at most he's worth, if he was still there, 44 or whatever, maybe I'd take a look there. But before that, I think you're just going to be really disappointed with what you get from him.
That's interesting. Just your thoughts about kind of off the ball. That's somewhere I've been really impressed. I think his shot prep is really quick with his footwork and setting up off screens. Really quick release. He doesn't really dip the ball down to shoot it. But no, I definitely get the point about him not dominating college. I think if Clark were just a really good player, you'd have that same exact point for him. But obviously Clark did dominate college. So yeah, I think that's a very valid point about him just being a very good college player with North Carolina last year rather than a historically dominant one with a guy like Clark. So yeah, I definitely get some concerns. I get the hope defensively, like I said, it's just that you can put him on those two guards, maybe a little slower, and he can use his smarts and his length to compensate there. But yeah, a lot of it does hinge on his shooting. If it's not elite, he's not going to deliver a good return on investment, and he wasn't elite before this year. And so I think there is some hesitance there with those 1-year samples. I think he was pretty good in his last year at Pitt, but nowhere near close to 46%. His synergy numbers weren't as elite either. So yeah, there's definitely some room for concern. If you're high on him, you're just betting on the fact that this UNC year is more of a reflection of who he is and everything prior, which is a fairly tough risk given the sample size. But that's kind of the lens you're looking at it through if you really, really buy into Johnson as an elite NBA shooter.
Okay. All right, we're going to break it up a little bit. We're going to get into some rapid fire questions. You cool with that, Jackson?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. First or second round, who is the draft prospect you are most right about? Jackson, you want to start us off?
Most right about? Oh, man. I think the guy that I'm probably highest on compared to anyone in consensus would be a guy like Carson Edwards. I have him 18th. Whereas I think I'm high on Clark. I'm high on Grant Williams. I'm high on Goga Badatse. But I think a lot of people have them high as well. So I think Carson Edwards has to be the guy that I'm highest on there. Second round.
Are we talking about who we are right on this year or who we're right on in the past?
I was thinking about more of the past, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. In the past. Dang, that's tough. Sorry about that. I misinterpreted your question. I think a guy that I really liked last year, but I think it was also other people liked, was a guy like Kevin Huerter. I really liked him. I had him somewhere in my lottery, 13 or 14. Obviously, he's proven to be really, really good long-term piece in Atlanta. Second round, really, no one really comes to mind. I think second round guys are just a tough evaluation and tough to stick because they don't get the same opportunity. But I think Kevin Huerter would be the guy that I feel confident about my evaluation in from last year.
All right. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, I've been doing draft projections since 2014, so I went back to my previous big boards. I'd say guys that I was most right about being good: Miles Turner, Justice Winslow, Kyle Anderson. I had all of them as top 5 prospects, and all of them turned out to be really, really good players. Most right about being bad: I had Andrew Wiggins 12th overall. I think I had Julia Okafor 16th overall. Obviously, both of them have busted pretty hard, despite Wiggins getting that absolutely ridiculous contract. So I'd say those 5 guys are probably the guys that I was most right about.
I got to say, for me, it was Ben Simmons. Not exactly the riskiest pick there, but all of that nonsense about Brandon Ingram, that was just not me. I was not buying it. It was all over in the media, local media, and no, that just didn't happen. All right. 10 being fully confident, 0 being no confidence. From 0 to 10, how confident are you that Jimmy Butler will sign a max contract with the Sixers? Jackson, what do you think?
I'd say about an 8 for me.
Okay.
Just seems like the things we've seen, he hasn't been really linked to a lot of other teams. That he's been linked to the Lakers a little bit, but the way Woj worded it yesterday was basically just like, hey, if he doesn't want to re-sign with the Sixers, then I'll have some interest there. But it's been reported the Sixers are prepared to offer him the max deal. he's been. I mean, you don't want to read tea leaves, but he's been hanging out with one of the Sixers staffers this summer or this offseason a little bit. So I just think, I mean, it seems like he wants the money. The Sixers are prepared to give it to him. It's a great fit here. It's not the 100th percentile fit basketball wise, but it's pretty dang good. I think people kind of overrate the fact that he can't shoot elite from elite, but he does everything else the Sixers need. Just makes sense for a lot of reasons. Wasn't really a huge issue for them off the court. There was that little skirmish in January. But other than that, he seemed to be a really good fit with everyone. So just no sourcing or anything, but get 8.5. I feel pretty confident he's going to resign.
We've seen him hang out in Ambler, for a while now, right? So there's something there, right? Come on.
That's the hope if you're a Sixers fan, right?
Hope. Fingers crossed. How about you, Adam?
I'm going to take a pass on this one. I don't follow free agent rumors. I don't follow the Twitter. Ask me, on July 1st or 2nd, I'll pay attention to who's signing where. I don't pay attention before that.
If he resigns, I'll give you a 10 on June 30th at 6:10 p.m.
Yeah, I just don't follow enough. I don't have an informed opinion there.
All right, cool. All right, Jackson, what is your favorite NBA draft memory? Go ahead.
Oh man. I think I don't know if my favorite, but one that really sticks out to me was what year was it? The New Orleans draft. Was that 2014? When
2013.
2013, yeah, because it was the year right after the AD draft. When the Pelicans drafted Noel, and it was like, well, like what are they doing? Like, are they building the Twin Towers out there in New Orleans with Davis and Noel? And then that set in motion the Drew Holiday trade. Noel went to the Sixers, so that was just a memory that stuck out to me because I just so distinctly remember the camera kept panning back to Noel. He torn his ACL. He's projected to be maybe the top pick, maybe the second pick for a while, and he fell all the way to 10, I want to say. Just kind of the thing that set that in motion. 6, sorry. But still, just because they kept panning to him, and you could just tell how he was surprised, and then just the thought of, are they building, like, what are they doing there with Anthony Davis and Nerlens Noel, and then obviously he got traded. So that was a pretty distinct memory for me 6 years ago.
I can't believe you said that because that was going to be mine. What's so funny about that?
I mean, yeah, I think as a Sixers fan, it's going to be anybody's recently.
Yeah, my wife listens to this, so I have to pick this because I proposed to my wife on the draft night when they traded Drew. So I was also, for my bachelor party, we went to the Joel Embiid, Dario Saric draft. So the process runs through my veins, and I'm playing it safe. So because my wife watches it, so I'm gonna say Nerlens Noel. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I was a huge Noel fan. I had him on my fantasy team, and when he tore his ACL, but what I remember most about that night is when it was first reported is that we were giving up Drew and a first-round pick for the pick, and then like everyone freaked out, and then like an hour later, like, yeah, no, we just misreported it. I don't know if you guys remember that, but
yeah, I remember.
There's an hour of panic there, but once all was said and done, it ended up, being great. I'm too young for the AI draft, so I'm sure people from a different generation probably say that winning that lottery, but I was too young for that.
All right. Which player do you think will be the biggest reach in this draft, this 2019 draft? Adam, go ahead.
DeAndre Hunter. That's easy.
Wow.
DeAndre Hunter's just I don't understand why people – I mean, I have him as a late first-round prospect based on his offense. Somewhere along the line, somebody decided he was good at defense, and he's just not. I think people need to watch the tape a little bit on him. And what's weird to me with that is that you read the scouting reports on him, and every scouting report says the same. He can't stay ahead of quicker defenders. He doesn't get steals. He doesn't get blocks. And then it says, but he's an elite defender. And I'm like, wait a second. If he can't stay in front of quick people and he doesn't get steals or blocks, what's your definition of an elite defender? Because we're talking about two different things here.
Yeah.
You put on the tape. On the ball, he gets beaten very easily when he doesn't have the pack line help. When he's on an island, he can't stay in front of anybody. That's at the college level. He couldn't stay in front of average college athletes. I have no idea how he stays in front of better NBA athletes. Off the ball, he gets lost. He walks around a lot, doesn't give effort, doesn't box out. doesn't swipe on drives. I mean, just completely disinterested on defense. I think the pack line really hit him a lot. And I think whatever team drafts him is going to be really disappointed when they find out that, people think that they're getting, I guess a Trevor Ariza type, or they keep calling him safe. But I think they're much more likely to get a 3-point shooter who they have to hide on defense rather than the 3-and-D guy.
Yeah, Hunter would have been my primary pick too. I do think he's a pretty good on-ball defender. The issue is that he doesn't know how to play off-ball defense. He just stays true to his man all the time. And they use the pack line defense, the conservative thing, to point to his lack of steals and blocks. But he just doesn't have the instincts. He just doesn't know how to play off-ball defense. It's jarring to watch. You go from watching the finals one night, watching Draymond Green and Pascal Siakam and Kawhi Leonard or whatever, and then you watch DeAndre Hunter tape and he doesn't ever rotate or anything. He just stays with his man unnecessarily. And I think he's overrated as a shooter too. Shot 2.5 3-pointers a game. And his release is slow. That the whole Zion viral clip where he blocked the shot was an incredible play from Zion, but it only happened because DeAndre Hunter's load up time to shoot threes is 4.5 seconds or something. My second pick would be Rui Hachimura. It pains me to say as a Gonzaga guy, but I just don't understand the lottery hype with him. I think a lot of you're buying into he seems there's been a lot of awesome stories about his journey. You're buying into his continued growth, but just a really, really poor off-ball defender, lacks the awareness. He's fine on the ball. At his size, he'll be fine. He's not going to guys going to get roasted a ton against other power forwards or threes, but just really lacks off-ball awareness. Not a very good passer. He's okay at making predetermined reads as a passer, but when he's posting up, he misses so many kickouts. Just really lacks the feel and the awareness you need to be a lottery pick. And not necessarily, I guess those aren't prerequisites for being a lottery pick, but combined with this kind of archaic offensive game, a lot of face-ups, a lot of post-ups, not a lot of three-pointers, not a lot of passing, just kind of instinctually, it's tough to really peg him as anything better than a top 30 pick. I know a lot of people are lower on him. I have a little bit of faith just behind his work ethic and all that, kind of seeing it firsthand at Gonzaga. So I have him 28th or 29th, I think, but the top 10, top 12 hype is insane to me. I just don't understand how you project to put him into an offense as a complimentary player, and even less so as a focal point of an offense if he can't really pass and is going to struggle off the ball. The play that kind of sticks out with me is watching the UW Gonzaga game again a couple weeks ago, and he just he watched the pick and roll unfold. Gonzaga trapped it, and he just watches the guy roll down the lane. He didn't even touch him. And it's I just don't like it. I guess it's such a simple read as a defender. If you're the weak side defender and you see the guy roll the basket unguarded, you have to pick that up. And it just baffled me that he couldn't do it. And one of those plays as a prospect that really, really kind of is ingrained into my brain that makes me tough to really, really buy him as a lottery pick.
All right, let's go.
If you want to see, just real quick, if you want to see that defense, Tobias Harris, that drives me crazy. He does that exact same thing. So you asked about Jimmy Butler, but kind of out there too, and giving him a max when he does exactly that. I'm worried.
Right, let's go to the opposite end. Who is your biggest sleeper of this year's draft? Jackson, go ahead, dude.
Sleeper. That's tough. It's for me. It's just tough to say because I'm so kind of ingrained in that draft Twitter community that I feel like every sleeper's been hashed out and has been they're awake now. But I think the guy I'm probably highest on compared to consensus is Carson Edwards. I jumped the gun talking about him a little bit ago, but I've got him 18th. I think that's pretty high for a lot of people. I think I really like is Darius Beasley. He's pretty big mystery. We haven't seen much of him. Saw a little bit at the combine, but I really like his fluidity in his offensive game, ball handling, a little bit of a decent passer for his size. Just really intrigued with what he kind of projects to be in the NBA. But everyone else I feel like is pretty well hashed out. Grant Williams, Brandon Clark, all those guys who I have a lot higher than consensus. They're nowhere near sleepers this year. But yeah, I'd say Carson Edwards is the guy I probably am highest on compared to consensus at this point.
Cool. Adam?
Yeah, I guess I'll name just a couple guys who I think aren't really getting buzz as draft picks. Jeremiah Martin's a guy I've talked about before. I think I talked about him last time I was on here out of Memphis. Currently not projected to get drafted. I think he's a great guard for somebody looking for a guard. Dedrick Lawson out of Kansas. I don't know why I've seen him kind of at the back end of some drafts, some mock drafts. I think if you like that type of older power forward, kind of like Brandon Clark or Grant Williams, I think Dedrick Lawson. Clarkson kind of a couple leaps up from them, but he's the same type of really well-rounded, high quality. He was a senior, but he was the best player on Kansas this year. And it's easy to see him carving out a role for himself at the next level.
The issue
the other
with
guy,
Lawson is not a very he tested so poorly, and so I get, I'm not saying I get having him in the top 60. I just know the issue that people have with him is that he's just such a poor athlete, but he's productive and he's a good basketball player, so I get it.
Yeah, well, when we're talking about guys who are getting projected back, then there's obviously some sort of major flaw. Another guy's going to have the same athletic issue. Mike Dahm out of South Dakota State, another guy kind of seen getting a little bit of back end of the draft hype. Ridiculously productive for a low major. Great shooter. I don't know that he's going to be able to stick in the NBA just due to the defense and the athleticism gap. But if he can make it work, he's one of the better shooters in the draft, and certainly at least worth a look to get drafted.
I personally like a lot of the second round guards that I've ranked in my 30 to 60. I like a lot of those older guards: Justin Robinson, Tremont Waters. I guess he's not older, but Cody Martin's a guy I'm a really big fan of. I think he's just going to find a way to make it. Super smart player, plays both ends at a fine level. Shamori Pons is probably a guy who's going to have a decent role in the NBA. He's pretty divisive among some people, but just there's a lot of good guards who go in that second round. You can bring off the bench for 15, 18 minutes a night, and in that range from 45 to 60, you're not looking for much more than a guy who can be playable in the rotation, right?
You love your undersized guys.
I like good basketball players who I think have projectable skills. Yeah, I get the undersized. I get the hesitancies there, but I just think in a draft that doesn't have a lot of great star power, it's worth betting on the guys who are really good at basketball. And I might look back in 4 years and I'll be burned on it. And I'll have to reevaluate my philosophy. But
that's ultimately looking back. The biggest class of players I missed on were really quality guys who didn't have the height measurements, and I missed on them so many that maybe I'm overly skittish this year, but fool me 8 times, shame on me.
All right, guys. Do you prefer to watch the NBA draft in private, or do you like to watch it in public? Adam, go.
I've been watching the NBA draft with a bunch of guys from my fantasy college basketball league since 2014, and that's not going to change. So I like both, but that's the way I watch it. So shout out to the RBFBL.
I think I probably enjoy watching it with other people just so I can discuss, what we think of this pick, what we think of that trade that just happened. Twitter's great for that, but at the same time, actually being able to discuss it is a little more fun and it's easier than being glued to your phone and typing 65 words every minute after a pick or something. So just like being able to talk with people and kind of give thoughts on why that was a good or bad pick, why that trade was a win for another team or whatever. So generally like having other people around me when I'm watching the draft. Yeah.
I think things are definitely different compared to years past. This is probably the first year I'm going to be going out and hanging out with friends, like at a bar or something like that. But the previous drafts, man, I get so much anxiety that it's like watching a Birds game. I need the TV. I need it, quiet. I need to just focus on the draft. So, all right. On a scale of 10 being crazy, ridiculously talented, and 0 just being trash, how would you rate this year's talent? Adam, what are your thoughts?
So I don't like going back before 2014 because I wasn't doing it before then. So just, I guess, over the past 5 years, I think the top end of this draft is really talented. I think Zion has a legitimate chance to be a top 10 NBA player. I know a lot of people disagree with me, but I think Bol has a chance to be a legitimate top 10, top 15 player. I think John Morant has a chance to be a franchise point guard. So getting 3 guys who I feel have that kind of upside, I think is, really good. 8, 9, we're talking. Unfortunately, I think once we get beyond that, the depth in this draft is so bad that the rest of this draft might be closer to maybe a 2 or a 3. There's just not a lot behind them. But I think that, drafts are typically defined by their stars. And I think there's a couple of guys who have real star power here. So probably overall end up somewhere in the middle. But I think this is really a top and then everybody else type of draft.
Yeah, I would say probably about a 6. I'm lower on even the 2 and 3 guys. I have Jarrett Culver second and Brandon Clark third. So obviously I'm fairly low on. I have Jaw fourth and RJ seventh. So, but they're all in that same second tier for me, so not a huge difference there. But just a little lower on them. I think they could be stars. Don't buy them as top 15, top 20 stars. More of that kind of top 30-ish level. So I think the star power is low, and as Adam said, drafts are usually defined by those stars, especially for teams who are drafting that range. So I think it won't be a great draft for them. But teams who are drafting kind of beyond that 7 to 8 range, I think there are a lot of guys we're going to look back on and say they're high-quality starters. Not stars, but guys who became high-level rotation players, high-level starters. I really like kind of my third tier of guys. Just listen to some of the names, guys like PJ Washington, Chumo Kiki, even lower guys like Romeo Langford. I'm not a huge fan of Cam Reddish, but I think he's going to be a fine NBA player to an extent. So I just think there's a lot of guys who we're going to look back on and have realized they're good quality NBA starters, even if they're not stars. And that's not necessarily very flashy for a lot of teams who are looking for those franchise pillars. But so I'd give it about a 6 because I do think it has a lot of NBA players in it, which is a very simplistic way of looking at it. But I do think being able to draft guys who become NBA players who you retain on a second contract or whatever is valuable in itself once you reach a certain point in the draft.
Awesome. All right. Last rapid fire question. This is a personal question. I'm a big foodie. What's your food preference for the NBA draft? Jackson, go.
Oh man. I'd probably go something I can like intermittently eat. So, not something that, I got to sit down and eat, but so something like wings or something you can eat 1 or 2 and and then watch the pick and watch what all the analysts have to say and then come back for a few more. But that'd be me. I'm not. I mean, for whatever reason, I'm trying to think. I guess the last few years I've been working a lot on draft night. Just not to say that, my summer job here in Portland. So, I've watched it, but it's been tougher. So, not usually. But I think wings usually what I just recall in the last few years when I do have free time, that'd be my go-to just because it's easy and I don't have to commit to it all in one sitting.
What about you, Adam?
Pizza and wings. Keep it simple. Okay.
I'm a big crock pot guy. I like to make a nice sandwich. Some sort of meat, whether it's like some sort of like shredded beef or like a pork butt or something along those lines. Like I like a nice, nice sandwich. All right.
We might have to watch the draft together sometime then. If you're getting the crock pot out for draft night, you might have to fly out there or something, get some good meat.
Hell yeah, man. Let's do it. All right. Last couple questions. All right, so let's get into the second round. If the Sixers decide to use picks number 33 and 34, who are some of your favorite prospects the Sixers should keep an eye on? Jackson, go ahead, dude.
Yeah, I think Chumo Kiki will be there in the second round. I haven't seen him mocked higher than I think the Hawks have 35. I want to say I haven't seen him mocked higher than there really by some of the people who do Intel-based mocks. The guy I don't think Ty Jerome will be there. I'm lower in him, but I think if you want to take him at 33 or 34, that's fine. I like Yovel Zusman. He's an international guy. I think he's 21. He's from Israel. 6'7" wing. Can shoot off the dribble a little bit. Pretty good passer for his size. Pretty solid straight line athlete in terms of just being pretty quick off the ground. Some questions about kind of his passiveness and indecisiveness as a decision maker at times, but I think he is a guy who could stick in the league as a solid rotation wing. Other guys that I like DeQuan Jeffries a little bit too, Terrence Davis, some of those older wings. I think the Sixers just need playable wings. We saw in the second round they were so good defensively because they were such a gigantic team. They should really lean into that identity. So find a couple of guys who can shoot, but also find playable wings who can kind of give you that jumbo defensive identity that works so well against the Raptors that nearly led you to the upset series win.
What about you, Adam?
Yeah, anybody that I think we both brought up Ty Jerome and Chuma Okeke repeatedly. Obviously those are guys that we all think the Sixers should be targeting. I actually on my list here I have Grant Williams as my number one target at 33. As Jackson mentioned, great player. I would hesitate to draft him in the first round. Although, at 24, if the board falls wrong, I could absolutely see it. I'm not going to be upset about drafting Grant Williams. I have Mifyondu Kabengele out of Florida State. A lot of people don't like him. Not sure why. I think he could play stretch 4. I think he could play 5 against certain centers. Probably going to hurt a couple people by saying this, but I think he's really just a much better version of Joel Bolden. I think he is what we want him to be. Big fan of his. After that, my board gets a little, a lot of the guys I have ranked in that range, I think we could get with their later second or even might go undrafted. So really, I think their best bet is going to be to try to package those 2 picks to either use 24 to move up or use those 2 to move up into the first round. I don't know that I have 3 guys ranked in that range that are likely to be there. It's hard to hit on second rounders. I agree with Jackson that ideally they'd find some wings, but finding wings in the second round who are ready to compete and contribute right away is you just really never see it. So I think the best bet there is to take some big men. I think I've seen Daniel Gafford there a couple of times. I've seen Bruno Fernando. I think taking a chance on big men is going to just lead to more hits than taking wings. But I agree that we need wings. I just don't know that you're going to find him there.
Another guy I didn't mention would be Ignas Brazdeikis. Seems like he's projected kind of go in that range. I have him a little higher, not a ton higher. I have him 29th, but just a guy who seems like he should be pretty solid on both sides of the ball. 6'7", 6'8", pretty strong for his size. Can shoot the ball pretty well. Okay as a passer, kind of meets the threshold you need. So just one more wing to throw out there that I know the Sixers have worked out, so he's definitely on their radar to an extent.
Yeah, this has been a really weird draft. It's not a typical draft for me personally. Typically, it goes by the week. I'll go through these phases where I'm hot on one prospect and I'm hot on another. And I've been for about a quick month. It's been Matisse Thybulle at 24, and it's been Carson Edwards and Chuma Okeke at 33 and 34. And I've been pretty much dead set on those guys for a month now, which is not typical. It's weird. So.
Well, I hope, if those are the 3 guys we end up with, I think we'll all be pretty happy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Everyone seems to be on the same page with those guys.
Yeah, I think most of Sixers Twitter or Sixers fans has their 5 or 6 guys they've kind of targeted, and they all kind of are in harmony with their analysis of them to an extent. I am curious though to see if they got 42 and 54 as well. I believe, kind of curious to see if they package any of those to move up a little bit or something like that. Just because they don't have room for 5 picks on a team that's trying to win a title.
I expect them to take some internationals with those later picks.
Yeah.
Or sell them. I know they've sold some picks in the past.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to kind of see. Just as an NBA guru, it'll be interesting to see what they do with all those picks and how they approach it, because there's just no way they're going to have five rookies on their team next year. It's just not. I guess basically 6 or 7 when you count Shake and Zaire because they didn't play a ton this year. So just doesn't seem feasible, but still interesting nonetheless to see what happens with those second round picks.
Perfect segue about Shake there. Our last question, with the Summer League approaching, seems like Jonah Bolden, Shake Milton, Zaire Smith will all be participating in this year's Summer League. Which of those guys do you think holds the most promise for next season? Jackson, what do you think?
It's got to be Zaire, right?
Okay.
He didn't play a lot of meaningful minutes this year. He played a little bit in that Bucks game when Butler was out, and did a couple nice things. But if he's a good rotation player, that just eliminates some of the need they have in free agency. I think obviously they should still target wings in free agency, but if you can have one that's developed in house, it just makes things a lot easier and places less pressure on hitting on those margin signings. Just a lot of promise. Already looks to be a really, really good on-ball defender with his length and his quickness and his IQ. If the shooting is legit, obviously a very small sample, but at least he was willing to shoot this year, which is a really big deal, I think. And just one of those guys who's such a smart player and such a really good athlete that if he becomes a playable wing this year in high leverage situations, it makes the Sixers that much better. And if they bring back Tobias and Jimmy and they have another playable wing off the bench, like they're going to be a really hard team to beat.
Awesome, Adam.
Yeah, if Zaire develops this year, it'd be great. I think he's still probably too young. I'm not expecting any real contribution from him this year. That's kind of why I mentioned, maybe including him in the trade. I think there are teams that could use him. I don't think he's the right time scale for this team because I think he's probably still 2 or 3 years away from being a real contributor. Shake Milton, I love the guy. I don't know that he's good enough. So for me, out of these three, it's kind of Jonah Bolden by default. I kind of just gave away that I'm not a huge fan of him. I don't know if he plays power forward or center. Not really a good defender, not really consistent three. But maybe he takes a step forward. I'm more confident in him than the other two taking the step forward. But since I don't really like any of them all that much, I'm just going to say that Ben Simmons is going to make his big age 23 leap, get even better, and I'm going to pick Ben Simmons. So I'm cheating.
I like it. You're getting creative. You're not cheating. I like it.
Awesome. I'm going to go. I love how you guys pick those guys because I'm going with Shake. I look at the guards in this draft, and I look at how much the Sixers need a guard that can shoot, a guard that can play defense, facilitate the pick and roll. Shake Milton kind of checks off all those boxes for me, so I'm excited to see what Shake can bring in the summer league.
I'd like to see him give him some run at point guard.
Yeah, he played a lot of point guard in Delaware and really thrived. And the shot looked pretty good there when he got his chance in the NBA. So not a good sample size, but I'm excited to see what we can get with, see if Shake can take that next step.
Yeah, I think the big thing with him is we just got to feel like, is he an NBA caliber athlete? Because I think a lot of times in the brief minutes he played this year in the NBA, it was tough to really buy into him being one. But I think he's probably a pretty good shooter. Decent passer for what they asked him to do. I liked him pre-draft. I definitely think I maybe underrated his lack of athleticism a little bit. But if he can become a playable guard, again, just one of the things. If any of those three guys mentioned, besides Ben Simmons, obviously, if any of them become any type of rotation player in the playoffs, like that's just a huge win for the Sixers because it places less of an emphasis on these free agent signings that people are kind of hand-wringing about, and rightfully so. I mean, the free agency this summer is going to be huge for the Sixers, but if you can get any type of in-house development, it's going to be huge for them and just take some of the pressure off of free agent signings.
I think just one final note, if I may. I think Shake Milton is a really interesting case study in, good shooters getting to the NBA and not being able to get it off. 37% on 5.8 attempts per game in the G League gets to the NBA. 32%. If you can't get your shot off, it doesn't matter how good you are. And I think, I think looking at any shooter in the draft, I know the Sixers are just looking at shooters in general. I think that's always the question is can you get your shot off? So hopefully Milton learned from his experience last year. I really do think he could be a good player. I think they just need to play him on the ball more. I think that's really going to help him.
Awesome. Well, Jackson, thank you so much for joining our pod. Guys, you probably follow him anyway, but make sure to follow Jackson on Twitter, JackFrank_JJF. We're all, freaking psyched for the draft, which is on Thursday. Any last comments, Jackson or Adam?
Nothing for me. I hope for the Sixers' sake they make the right picks, and I hope for the Blazers' sake they make the right picks as well. Or right picks, because we only have one of them. But I'm just really excited to see kind of what happens after that first. Actually, I had 4 really at this point. I think 1 through 3 are locked in, but with that new trade from yesterday, there's a lot of chaos. I think the top 8 guys are kind of locked in. I think it's going to be some combo of Zion, Ja, RJ, Darius Garland, Jarrett Culver, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, and I think I'm missing someone, but Kobe White, excuse me, last one. But even then, I think the order is a little vague. And then beyond those guys, it just seems like kind of a free for all, which is kind of the funnest part when you don't really have any idea who the team on the clock is going to take, unless Woj spoils it again this year with his elaborate.
I'm hearing rumors.
They've zeroed in. They've lasered in on. They've set the lights on. Open the source.
Awesome.
Yeah. And my final thought. I started my draft theory series on Blue Root at the Painted Lines. 3 articles Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this past week. If you didn't read them, go read them. I'm going to have content up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Far more than I can say in a couple of minutes here. So go read that. It's going to have all my thoughts on the draft in general. Thursday, probably around noon, maybe in the morning, my final big board will go up. So if you want my thoughts on all those players, just keep checking out the Painted Lines.
All right, guys. And lastly, we're holding a NBA draft watch party at Victory Brewing Company in the Kennett Square Tap Room. That starts at 5 o'clock. We're going to have Sixers giveaways. We're going to have Sixers trivia, a lot of process trivia, and we're going to have some special guests. So thank you guys for watching and listening. This is the Blue Root Pod for Jackson, Adam, and myself. Thanks, guys. Stay awesome.